I'm Tom Baker, this is Chasing Cars, this is the Volkswagen Amarok W580, and in today's video I'm going to show you why this Walkinshaw-tuned Amarok is the best Volkswagen ute that's ever been available on the Australian market. The Amarok W580 builds on the foundations of the well-known Amarok V6, which has really embedded itself in the Australian ute segment over the last few years. Under the bonnet, there's a 3-litre turbocharged V6 diesel engine, which goes really hard. And while there were never really any major issues with the Amarok's chassis, ride or handling, there's always room for improvement. And over the last few years, we've certainly checked out our fair share of flagship ute special editions. But most of them, cars like the Ranger Raptor, the Navara Warrior, the HiLux Rugged X, they're all off-roading specials. The Amarok W580, it's on-road focused. That means things like much wider, beefier, larger, grippier Pirelli Scorpion tyres. It means things like body extensions to give it even more stance, a retuned exhaust, and performance dampers, all introduced by Walkinshaw. And in today's video, we're going to take the W580S, as I've got here, out onto the road to see whether this is the best driving ute on the blacktop that you can get in Australia. But naturally, all these improvements come at a cost, and the W580S is 80 grand in Australia before on-road costs. Certainly not cheap. Well, I'm going to explain exactly what you get for your money and what the outcome is like from behind the wheel. In today's video, we'll jump inside, check out the comfort and the practicality of the Amarok W580S, we'll talk about the running costs of this car, and then we'll head out onto the road to see what this Walkinshaw-tuned Amarok is like to drive. Just before we talk about the Amarok's cabin, let's speak about where the W580 and W580S fit into the picture, because they're both high-end Amaroks. The standard W580 is $71,990, the W580S is $79,990, both before on-road costs, so no doubt about it, this S is a pretty pricey ute. That being said, it still falls under the expense of something like a Ford Ranger Raptor, and as I mentioned up front, the purpose of this vehicle is quite different. It's about superior on-road handling. I guess if you were cynical, you could say it's one for the concrete cowboys, so it should be pretty good for me, right? But here in the S, life is pretty good and pretty comfortable, and that's because this specification is effectively based on the nicest Amarok that you can buy, the Aventura. That means that you're getting things like these 14-way adjustable leather seats with heating, which seriously are comfortable and are rated by the German Institute for Healthier Backs. So, that means it's a seat that you're going to be able to drive in for hours at a time. And I've done that several times over the years in Amarok V6s with these chairs, and they seriously work well. In the W580S, they're trimmed in dark grey and light grey in a two-tone, and you get the Walkinshaw Group logo embossed into the headrest just to remind you this is a special Amarok, and you also get that reminder down here with an individually numbered plaque underneath the leather gear shifter. Also a nice to have. It doesn't scream at you though, it's still a classy, elegant cabin, which is something that the Amarok really scores points for. Certainly, she's an old girl now. This is a 10-year-old design, but because Volkswagen have gradually refreshed the Amarok as time has gone on, it probably doesn't feel quite its age in the cabin. The design in here is certainly industrial, it's nothing fancy, but it is attractive to the eye. The plastics are all hard and durable as you'd expect in a ute, but the grain in them is nice, they're matte, they're not shiny. And items like this leather steering wheel that's taken from a Volkswagen passenger car is small and feels car-like and has paddle shifters in this specification for the 8-speed auto. The basics, in other words, are done right in the Volkswagen Amarok. Now we've got a small 6.5-inch touchscreen here. It does have wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, navigation in the W580S, no DAB across the range, however, but that screen still works well, software's intuitive, no major complaints. And then ahead of me, we've got analog gauges, a color screen, digital speedo, nav and media information in that little screen there, but it all just works is what I'm trying to get across. There's also a good solid driving position, heaps of adjustment in the seat, 4-way lumbar. We've got storage between the seats, but not huge amounts of it. A tray ahead of the shifter, nothing modern like wireless charging though, but we do have grab handles about the cabin. We got decent sized cup holders and actually an old Volkswagen staple of flock-line door bins. So while it is getting on in years, it still feels fundamentally pleasant here in the Amarok. In contrast to up front, where it's roomy and comfortable, the backseat of the Volkswagen Amarok has never been this Ute's strong suit, and it still isn't, because while this is a flagship package for the Amarok, the underlying vehicle is still exactly the same, and that means a small backseat with small rear doors. Don't get me wrong, it's fine for short trips, and the comfort factor back here isn't too bad. The backrest is not as upright as it is in some Utes, and, you know, I fit at 6 foot, headroom's no issue, but as you can see, my knees are jammed right up against my own driving position. That being said, it's a wide car, so if you need it at a pinch, you'll get a third adult into the center seat without too much of a problem. Now, I say adult because the Amarok still doesn't have rear side airbags, so this isn't a car I'd be buying if I was going to be putting my kids in the back all the time. But given it's not a spacious back seat, and Utes really don't make great family cars to start with, if I was just going to be filling the front seat or 2 seats on a regular basis, it'd be totally fine. This is actually storage for a gym bag or that sort of thing, and the occasional passenger. I don't think it's really meant to be used all the time. Moving around here to the back of the Volkswagen Amarok, the fundamental shape hasn't changed over the last decade, but this is still a pretty good looking vehicle, particularly with the wider stance from the wheel arch extensions that you get on the W580 and W580S models. Now, I should point out on this car that I've got for the video today, there are a few extra accessories, including this tub cover, the roof mount, and also the tow bar. You'll have to pay extra for those, but everything else you see here is included on the W580S, including really cool touches like the side exit exhaust. There's another one on the other side for the tuned exhaust that Walkinshaw are responsible for. Now, of course, we can't see under the skin the special dampers that the W580 gets, but we'll certainly put them to the test in just a couple of minutes' time. What we can see here though is the adjusted wheel and tyre package. Much bigger and broader alloys meant that the tyre selection for the W580 was superior. So the wheels themselves are 20 inches by 9 inches, so quite beefy, and they're wrapped in Pirelli Scorpion all-terrain tyres measuring 275mm wide, so particularly wide for a vehicle of this sort. They should give better grip, especially in conditions like today where it's really quite changeable. We'll be checking that out shortly. Just before we take the new Amarok W580S for a drive, let's talk about what it costs to run an Amarok. First up, insurance. Over the last 12 months, the median budget direct customer paid $1,250 to comprehensively insure a new VW Amarok. Of course, your premium will depend on where you live, how you garage the car, who drives the car, your driving history, etc. The warranty on this vehicle is 5 years with unlimited kilometers. Now, servicing is published with cap prices on the Volkswagen website, and over 3 years it's going to cost you about $2,100 to service this car, and over 5 years it's going to cost about $3,600. So while it's not the cheapest, it's not the most expensive, and given the V6 gubbins under the bonnet, I guess it's kind of understandable. Now, in terms of fuel consumption, it really depends on how you drive this vehicle, but actually the V6 turbo diesel used in the Amarok can be remarkably economical when you're grand touring, which is something this car really likes to do. In fact, we've managed to see figures in the mid-8s. Now, in town, you're going to see more like 12 litres per 100 Ks, and just on really straight flat highway, you can probably do even better than that 8 figure. So the Amarok W580 is all about on-road prowess, so let's see whether or not it lives up to the mission. Now, we are out here in regional New South Wales on a very changeable autumn day, so it's now just started lightly raining, but I'm not too concerned because the Amarok's chassis has always been good right from the time it was introduced as a 4-cylinder to when the V6 was fed into the range in late 2016. And now, with the additions on the Walkinshaw versions, in particular the grippier tyres, we should be absolutely fine, and that in itself is actually something to write home about. Because if we're honest, most Utes are actually a little scary to drive in the rain. Most of them don't feel that controlled. They don't have particularly suitable tyres for wet Australian roads, and most of them run in two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, on tarmac. There's only a few Utes that run with permanent all-wheel drive. The Amarok is one of them. The Triton can do it if you have the Super Select system on that vehicle. And on a day like today, where the roads are really greasy because it's been dry for a long time and now the rain is bringing out the oil in the road surface, something like permanent all-wheel drive really makes a difference. And especially when you're dealing with the kind of outputs that you get on a V6 Amarok. Now, the V6 motor in this vehicle comes in a variety of tunes, and this one has the most power, 190 kilowatts and 580 newton meters of torque from the 3-litre single turbo V6 diesel under the bonnet here. And it's not just the Walkinshaw version that gets those outputs. You can get them on a non-Walkinshaw, but I think it makes total sense that for the Walkinshaw version of the Ute, you would use the toughest of the lot. And when this version of the V6 launched, Volkswagen were keen to also point out that you do get 200 kilowatts of power on overboost. All that really matters is that it feels quick and very refined. In fact, probably the bigger deal about this engine is just how lush, creamy, buttery, smooth and refined it is compared to the extremely agricultural engines that you typically get in this segment. Even though the Amarok and even the Amarok V6 are far from new, this engine still totally puts paid to ideas of rivals encroaching on the Volkswagen's performance in the powertrain department. This still is the benchmark for this class all these years on. Hopefully you're able to hear, but the engine itself is hushed, and then when you wake it up, it just has a pleasant sound to it. It's not really diesel-y because with a higher cylinder count than most, it just takes the edge off that agricultural sound. It always has power in reserve. Having driven one of these things on the Autobahn, they'll do about 210 flat out, but obviously that's not particularly relevant for Australia. What is relevant is that it's effortless. That's a cliche, I know, but compared to something like a 2.8 litre HiLux or any of the Rangers really, the Amarok just feels endowed with strength in the engine department. And the 8-speed torque converter auto is a great partner for the engine, and the all-wheel drive system is just seamless. Now, the Amarok is actually pretty capable off-road without low range, and when the Amarok V6 was launched, that was the setting of that car's initial drive. But in the W580, it's very much about on-road dynamics. Now that sort of clashes with the fact the Amarok has a front-end lift. The rear end stays at the same height, but the car does have performance dampers, which is designed to soak up impacts on Australian B roads even better, and they really work. I saw a bump before, pretty much aimed straight at it because I thought it was going to be effectively a full compression, but that just never came. There's just so much travel in this suspension, and yet body control is really, really impressive. Controlled and compliant are the two words I'd use to describe how the Amarok and particularly the W580 get down the road. But I don't think it's a night and day difference with the Walkinshaw version. I think it's probably 10% better, 10 to 20, but really any of the standard Amarok V6s are just terrific to drive and really well balanced. The main area where I did notice a difference, particularly in today's conditions, is in the tyres. And naturally that's a change you could make to any Amarok, but in particular the alloy wheels used here are wider themselves and they allow fitment of a wider tyre. In this case, the 275mm wide Pirelli Scorpion All-Terrain. And they make a really, really big difference. You can turn in harder and faster, the car stays with you, and just a little bit of wiggle that you get from the grip of a regular Amarok V6 isn't there. You can commit much harder than in a standard Amarok V6 here in the Walkinshaw. So it rides, a touch better, it corners much better, and it goes just as hard engine-wise. So really, it's a nice package. No doubt 80 grand is expensive, but if you're really honest with yourself and you know that the main thing you want to do with a flagship Ute is drive it on the road, then the Amarok V6 Walkinshaw versions make much more sense than buying something like a Ford Ranger Raptor, which at its heart is about Baja driving and extreme off-roading, and its tyres are not cut out for this kind of work. Same goes for the HiLux Rugged X, the Navara Warrior, those sorts of vehicles which are very much targeted at the off-roading market. Now I do think Volkswagen will have a stab at an off-roading special Amarok later, but for now it's all about the on-road version. And so all of these modifications team well with the Amarok steering, single mode steering, one good mode, nice and meaty in weight, but the steering wheel is small and so it doesn't take a huge amount of effort to turn the car. It's really predictable in the corners. You can see over the brow of the bonnet really nicely. Plotting a line is good. And the ride of the vehicle is excellent for a Ute on leaf springs. The tray is a lot more settled, unladen in the Amarok than in most rivals. I'm not going to tell you it feels like an SUV. It doesn't. If you tune your sensors in, you're not going to miss the slight sort of scuttly shake from the rear end, but it's suppressed well on the Volkswagen, and eventually you just relax into this car. Comfortable seats, decent stereo, good visibility, pleasant fixtures in the cabin, and a really good ride. So there's little to complain about apart from the obvious dating elements of the car. The technology is a little outdated. The rear airbag situation is far from ideal. There's no AEB, no adaptive cruise, no lane keep assist, no blind spot monitoring, no 360-degree camera. So there are utes out there now. There's the new D-Max and BT50, there's the Ranger, which have more tech. But none of them can best the Amarok's blend of pleasant on-road driving dynamics. So it comes down to what you're actually going to do, what you actually want from your ute. And I think the W580S is an interesting entrant to the segment, even this late in the Amarok's life. So those are my first impressions of the Volkswagen Amarok W580S. Certainly an interesting proposition, and I think Volkswagen have probably made the right call by aiming for an on-road special edition. Now, an off-road special Amarok certainly hasn't been ruled out, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw one before the current generation Amarok reaches the end of its life in late 2022. At that point, the second gen Amarok, which will be sharing a platform with the next Ford Ranger, is expected to arrive here in Australia. So the current car will still soldier on for another 18 months or so. But soldier on feels a bit unfair, doesn't it? Because for most of this car, the Amarok still feels remarkably up to date, despite being one of the oldest vehicles in this segment. The fundamentals of this car are pretty much right, and the Walkinshaw stuff just adds an extra 10 or 20% of capability to an already very, very good vehicle. Now, I'm keen to know your thoughts. Let me know down below in the comments. While you're there, make sure to hit subscribe and the notification bell. And as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.